Hi guys, Ashley here. Today I'm bringing you Napoleon Biggs, who is the digital innovation architect and the founder of Web Wednesdays. He is literally the father of digital marketing here in Asia, and he's been watching China for over 20 years. Napoleon, welcome on the show.
Thank you. Very happy to be here with you. If I'm the father, you must be the grandchild, the prodigy. You're the prodigy.
Well, we're all part of one big China Watcher family, that's for sure. We are both located in Hong Kong right now. So let us start with this question that worries a lot of people. How is Hong Kong?
Hong Kong, I've been here quite a while, or more than 25 years. Hong Kong is very good at reinventing itself. I think because Hong Kong, comes from basically immigrants, whether it's from China or other parts of the world. So Hong Kong people are very good at reinventing themselves, are very good at kind of dealing with whatever is thrown in their faces. And I think at the moment, we're all a bit nervous because we felt we could breathe a sigh of relief after the protests in January. We felt, oh great, finally we can get back to life. And then along comes good old coronavirus. And we were starting to breathe a sigh of relief about 10 days ago, and along comes returnee students carrying the European version of the coronavirus, which for some reason seems a little bit more harsh. So I think now we're all a bit nervous, but like you, we're all trying to keep alive, trying to keep our businesses going, our families going. I do think there's a good thing happening in Hong Kong, though. I do think Hong Kong is usually rush, right? You're always in a rush to do things. I do think it's forcing people to slow down, take a breath, sit on the balcony with the flowers, consider life. So I see this in personal life and business life too. I see people taking this as a chance to say, what am I really doing? Repurposing themselves, mainly because they have to, but also I see a lot of people, the ones who are a bit more forward thinking and lived through crisis, are saying like, well, what am I going to do now, right? What are we going to do in the future? How are we going to change our business? I mean, I work with a lot of retailers.
Yeah.
And they're all like saying, oh my God, there's nobody coming to our shops. Footfall doesn't exist. How can we repurpose ourselves?
And
a lot of thinking going on.
Absolutely, I totally agree. A lot of things are killing businesses in Hong Kong right now. As you mentioned, protests, coronavirus, landlords that are not really participating, being part of these relief measures. So how can actually businesses here, retailers, offline first businesses reinvent themselves? You focus on digitalization. So what can they do right now? Do you think they have a hope?
I can't give you some exact examples because I'm under, typical confidentiality. But what I'm seeing is that in Hong Kong, there's always been a resistance from retailers and from shops to go online. They've always said, we don't need to. People just walk in the door, right? It's such a compact, intense city. You walk down one street near where we last met. It used to be all the shops were selling cards, right? Every single shop was selling cards. So it's very intense in terms of the retail experience. But I think now people are finally realizing that they can sell stuff online. And not only that, is the buyer is ready to search and have things delivered. I mean, you're seeing from food to clothes to baby stuff, it's all getting delivered. So I think it's quite interesting. This happened 20 years ago, but there was no infrastructure and nobody understood what it was. Now they go, oh yeah, let's go onto WhatsApp and order this. Let's go to WeChat and order that. Oh yeah, did you hear about that deal on HKTV? Oh, on the list of doing a promotion with shoes, buy those. So there's a lot of, it's kind of tapping into the access. And I think the food industry is interesting to me because people in Hong Kong love to go out. Most Hong Kong people don't know how to cook, right? They have no idea how to cook, right? And they have no inclination. They never want to learn how to cook. There is a small
and they have
niche
help. Many of them have help.
Exactly. So they have help, right? Your person who cleans your house is also your cook, if you're lucky, and your child carer. So I think a lot of people now, this is one reason I think the restaurants here not being closed down by the government is that it supports a lot of people. I think there's 300,000 restaurants or something, or outlets. To close those all down would do huge damage. And then the psychology in Hong Kong is, you need to go and eat, right? It's kind of eating at home is not a given thing. So I think that psychology dribbled through into the rest of the economy. Your question was a little slightly bigger. How are people dealing with it? I'm seeing a lot of projects being put on hold, which is frustrating because there's a lot of good ideas. You know, Hong Kong always has people with good ideas coming to Hong Kong or starting in Hong Kong, whether it's technology or marketing or just new ways of doing things. But a lot of people I talk to say, you know, we've been talking to these guys for the last 6 months, but now it's on hold. So I'm curious what's going to happen. You know, there's a lot of people that want to trigger things. And that trigger nearly happened in January, you know, and then Chinese New Year hit us, and then Corona. So the kind of trigger of wanting to do things, I think there's a pent-up energy in Hong Kong. I think people really want to do stuff, but they're waiting for somebody to open the door and go, right, go ahead, right?
And actually, I love it how you said Hong Kong is great at reinventing itself. And it has been for years doing exactly that. But a lot of people comparing Hong Kong to, again, Singapore or Shanghai, the two rival cities here in Asia, are saying that Singapore was a lot more successful at this reinvention. Hong Kong stayed the financial center, Hong Kong stayed the retail and, let's say, tourism center, but it did not create this innovative tech-driven industry or startup ecosystems. And I know a lot of local entrepreneurs actually criticizing the government and the tycoons and whoever you want to blame. You know, it's always this kind of finger pointing for that fact that we are not ready, as many think, for this 21st century. What is your take on that?
That's a good question. I have, because I used to go to Singapore a lot on business. I used to go once every 2 weeks. And I have some friends at the Economic Development Board in Singapore. I agree that Singapore is much more aggressive as a government. I mean, when I had my own web design business, we wanted to open an office in Shanghai, and the Singaporean government called us in Hong Kong and said, if you move to Singapore, we'll help you open an office in Shanghai. Right? That's pretty forward thinking, right? That's them aggressively going out. So they're much more aggressive about it. But I have a friend, a smart young lady who works for the EDB. She loves coming to Hong Kong. She says, in Singapore, we make 5-year plans. We'll say, right, what's the next hottest thing? It's pharmaceuticals. Right, or it's AI. Let's develop a course in the university. Let's hire the best professors. Let's give tax breaks to companies to set up in the country. So they feed the university from the company. So it's very structured. But what she says about Hong Kong that she loves, she comes here and she says, there's absolutely no structure, and it still happens. So she's like, it's kind of the contrast for her is, in Hong Kong it happens, but there's no government edict. There's no, all right, let's coordinate between the academics and the business. It just kind of happens. So I think, I mean, Hong Kong is good at reinventing itself because you know, we've dealt with swine flu, SARS, bird flu. I mean, any flu you can imagine has been thrown our way, right? So the idea of disease is kind of quite normal here, right? And dealing with that. But I think, and also a lot of the attention in Hong Kong now is China, right? In the last 10 years, that's why you're here, right? All of the attention has gone. Hong Kong used to be export to Europe, export to Southeast Asia. Now, every entrepreneur I know here, they either go, Hong Kong's too small. I can't build a business in Hong Kong. I can't become a millionaire in Hong Kong. And they go immediately north, right? And they go, oh shit, China's really competitive. You know, there's good, smart companies. They know the market. They're getting funding. So it's quite tight. It's quite difficult to see where to go as a business. So, and I always think in Hong Kong, you have 3 economies. You have what I call actually 4 now, but originally 3, the C2C, which is not consumer to consumer. It's Cantonese to Cantonese. So there's a market, there's an economy in Hong Kong of only Hong Kong people who do business with Hong Kong people, right? Then you've got the C to G, which is Cantonese to Guilo, La Wai, right? Which is the locals who sell services and products to foreigners, are called expats, although nobody really is an expat. And then you get the G to G, which is the Guilo to Guilo, which is, you know, the kind of top of the iceberg. It's a tiny market of what, 600,000 people, which is foreigners selling services to foreigners, right? Now, of course, Hong Kong has a lot of regional companies here. So often those services are foreigners selling to a senior foreigner in a regional company. So you can make a business out of that. So I think what's interesting is how do you survive within that kind of breakdown of economies, mini economies? And now you have another one in the middle of that, which is the kind of mainland Chinese economy. And in Hong Kong, You've got mainland Chinese who only deal with mainland Chinese,
Yeah.
and then who deal with, who deal with the Cantonese or who deal with the Guilos. So it's quite interesting, the different kind of economies. And I advise people, where do you fit into that, right? Who are you trying to sell to? Are you selling to the foreigners? Are you selling to the Cantonese? Are you selling to the immigrant Chinese from China who love this place? This is their home. Who are you selling to?
This is absolutely fascinating. Do you feel that now moving to China, because as you said, Hong Kong, primarily a lot of businesses are essentially focusing on mainland China. What is your take on how this coronavirus situation impacted the businesses and also the consumer sentiment in China right now?
Well, it's a really weird to be a European originally in Hong Kong, you know, not even six, it feels like 6 months ago, a month ago. All my European friends are going, "Oh my God, what's happening in Asia? This is nuts. Are you okay? Are you safe?" Now it's completely the reverse. Sending masks to us from France and places like that. Now it's completely been flipped. And it's us saying, "Oh my God, are you okay? What's happening in Italy? What's happening in Spain? What's happening in Europe?" So psychologically, it's interesting because almost now I'm a bit frustrated because I see that these countries and companies are not learning from us, right? They're being really arrogant, and I think that's so foolish, right? They're not learning from what happened in China, especially in the technology world, right? I like you, I was fascinated by, technology really gets pushed by things like these kinds of crises, whether it's economic, but the Chinese, and you're a very Alibaba guru, but I'm really surprised and amazed by the way that the Chinese tech companies have converted their technology to help people, to track stuff, to do maps. I mean, in the early days, I was looking at all of the different tools that are out there in China to track what was going on in each province, in each city. If you went into Alibaba, Taobao, I went in daily, not only do you get statistics, but you get access to doctors, lots of help. I mean, you could argue it's kind of a nanny state like, but as far as I'm concerned, if you're ill, you want a nanny, right? You don't want somebody like Trump watching and not doing anything. So it's been really fascinating seeing the technology side because the Chinese have really pushed forward. And now they're trying to offer that skill set. I know that like Alibaba, Tencent are all offering the We Doctor services globally. So the Chinese are saying, look, we've learned a lot. Come and take advantage of what we can share with you. We've got Chinese medicine that can help. We've got the experience in China. But I don't know really, because I don't live in these other countries. I don't know what the appetite is like overseas. I mean, how many people are really going into We Doctor and doing a consultation with a Chinese, but actually they're not Chinese doctors. These are doctors all over the world and saying, look, help me. I don't know if I'm ill. Have I got a normal cough? Am I just feeling down? Whatever. So I'm just, the whole technology side of it has been fascinating to me because China was really moved ahead with the whole mobile payments, delivery, all of that. So you could stay at home and have food delivered to you. You could have, uncooked food that you finish off at home. I mean, the whole thing, very well organized. Now I see it in the rest of the world and it's chaos. It's taken, for example, I don't see any collaboration between Google and Facebook and all of these other technology companies. I don't see them, maybe I'm not aware of it, but I haven't seen any collaboration to say, right, here is a service that's going to help you find out, where to go if you're ill, how to take care of yourself, doctors you can talk to. I haven't seen that same collaboration. Now, you could argue this is because the Chinese government said it, but I think that's bollocks. Basically, these companies are entrepreneurial, they have employees, they care about the society, and they go, what can we do? There might be a nudge from the government, but what can we do to help people, right? They might get some money to help them do it, but I just don't see that same kind of coordination happening.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. And what is your take on what changes in China and mainland China and Hong Kong and maybe Asia in general, or the world even after coronavirus? Basically there are two lines of thoughts. One line of thought is this is a spike, this is going to be just like SARS, and then half a year later or a year later everything is going to be back to normal. The other line of thought is the world will never be the same. We're going to change our values. We're going to change the way we do business. We're going to change the way we, I don't know, connect, travel, educate, shop, etc., etc. And this is going to be similar to an industrial revolution. What is your take?
Wow, that's a big philosophical question. My God.
Oh, and again, we understand that you're not a fortune teller, so just your take.
Yeah, yeah. Let me get my ball out. I can only refer to what happened historically, right? Because with SARS, it was really interesting. After SARS, you know, people for a while didn't shake hands when you went. So there was the kind of, although SARS was a lot less intense and didn't go global, but the in terms of what the habits here was, for a while, you know, people working remotely they had separate offices, but very quickly they came back to their offices. Very quickly, people started taking off masks. Very quickly, you know, gatherings happened, business happened. But that was, you know, SARS was quite scary at one point because, you know, the internet didn't exist. So we didn't have, it did exist, but nobody was, not the social side, right? So now you've got the social side, which has pros and cons. But in those days, you turn on I sound really old fashioned. You turn on the radio and you'd hear announcements saying 200 people have come down with SARS today. And that was scary as shit to hear that on the radio, right? And the rumors were more just, you know, spread via email. Now, obviously, it all happened on social. So I think there's a real intensity to it. But what I've learned over the years is that us human beings, we're incredibly intense. But as soon as you give us hope and something to focus on, we'll leap onto it, right? We'll go straight onto it. I mean, look at all of the memes and stuff that's on the internet now, right? You know, you've got musicians in the States, you've got people in Italy singing from their balconies. In China, you had TikTok going nuts, right? I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't have a channel there, kind of, you know, elevating people. So I think technology-wise, all I see, it's an acceleration, right? Because I know a lot of startups, a lot of clever people with really good ideas, but they have to spend 70% of their time educating people as into why they need their technology. Now, what coronavirus has done is a lot of those people don't need to do the education. You don't have to say, why do I need to be on social media? Why do I need to do e-commerce? Why do I need to use WhatsApp? Why do I need to do conference calls? Why do I need to do a podcast? All of the whys are removed, right? It's like, tell me, how do I do a podcast? So all I see is the acceleration of the technology, right? But the question that worries me is the economic effect of this is a lot worse than anything I've ever seen in the past. I'm surprised that companies can collapse so quickly. I'm like, bloody hell, you know, even big companies are collapsing. So why? Well, do they overstretch themselves? I don't understand. So I think the reinvention will be in terms of the types of businesses, because, you know, the structure of businesses, having big companies and entrepreneurs. You know, we've had this kind of mixture happening with hackathons and entrepreneurs and all these things. I think there'll be a new generation, a new form of kind of business entity, which isn't necessarily based on where you are physically, or, you know, where your office is, or where you are on the map, or I'm seeing some really clever entrepreneurial people saying that basically this is a kind of model where we bring in talent and then they dissipate, right? I call it, I won't use that term, but I call it, it's a bit like a kind of military model, right? You bring in experts, they do their thing, then they all disappear back into society. So I think there'll be a different business model where I think big companies are not going to look at headcount only. They're going to say, right, you know, we have an issue. Or a challenge or a prospect. What are we going to do? Who should we bring in that we know? You know, who do we know in our network that we can pull in? And the way that they work together will still be physical, but I think there'll be a lot more collaboration happening online. Although I have to say, I still find when you get together and talk things face to face, it's somehow much more productive. You're much more, you know, involved. Your heart's in it. You're in it. Whereas on laptops and computers, you're kind of half there, right? So I think, I don't know if that answers part of your question, but I see there's a change there. I think the way that governments get involved is also really interesting, because I think a lot of people are going to look at the different government models around the world. And there's been people looking at this for the last 50 years, but people are going to look at these models and go, you know, what works? Does the China model work? Does the Singapore model work? You know, does the British model work? You know, which model works? Because if you're in crisis, you kind of want, you know, the government has to step up, right? But having said that, I also think people don't want governments around. So when it's all going hunky-dory, you know, like in Hong Kong, we don't like government. So but when it's all hunky-dory, it's like, yeah, you know, laissez-faire. When it's like this, it's like, oh my God, where's our leader? So I think there's a change in the view of what is government. There's a change in terms of how large companies and small companies, the structure. I mean, look at you, you've got several things going on, right? I have several things going on, but they don't really fit into the standard structure of what a kind of entity, a business entity is, right? And you can receive payments in different ways, you can pay people in different ways, you can charge in different ways. So I think there is a shake-up in the way you do business.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. And I love it how you incorporated so many ideas into the answer. The government, the consumer sentiment, the companies, the working cultures, everything is changing. What would be your advice? And this is our last question. What is the advice that you would give companies in Hong Kong or in mainland China that are foreign run or, again, locals that are looking to capture this new normal, these upcoming opportunities, as there are so many things shifting? What shall they do right now?
My first piece of advice is close your computer, turn off your telephone, go for a walk, and think. I was watching a documentary about, you know, great business people, and if you look at them, they all take time in the day to think, away from any distraction. So I think the good thing about being forced to work from home or remotely or whatever is that actually you have a lot less distractions, especially if you're the owner of a business. Because if you're the boss or a manager or an owner in an office, you know, you get interrupted every half an hour, every 15 minutes. So, and because you need to, right? People come to you for things. Can you help me with this? Should I do that? Whereas that doesn't happen when you're at home, or right? So it gives you a chance to go, right, I'm going to just close everything down, and I'm going to use my brain and my experience and my gut instinct, and I'm going to go, right, what is it I really want to do? How do I, you know, to think about all the issues of running a business. You know well, right? Or I'm talking about business here, but families as well, right? You're seeing people looking at their families and going, God, this is great. I haven't spent so much time with my family for a long time, right? Normally it's rush, 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 homework, rush, 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 go to bed, rush, 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 you know, let's have a glass of wine, rush, 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 that kind of lifestyle, right? So now people are taking breathers and really thinking the same way I compare it to what you see in Hong Kong now is a lot of people are renovating their homes. It's kind of weird. And the amount of conference calls I've had and people going, sorry, there's a drilling sound. Sorry, my neighbor's renovating. And you're like, what? And the thing is that people at home, they're going, oh, they realize that they've got cracks in the ceiling or the carpet's old or the toilet's broken. So people are the same concept of renovating your home I see with businesses is that can people now take a pause, stand aside and look at their business from the outside, literally, and go, you know, what are we really doing? What can I shake up? What can I change? You know, do I need to tweak this? Do I need to remove that toilet and change that crack? You know, what is it I need to do? So my advice to people is just find a way to close all technology and go and think, whether it's on your balcony doing yoga or sniffing the plants or whatever it is, just find something that helps you close everything down and just think, and then, you know, write it down or say it. Right.
This is gorgeous. Thank you so much, Napoleon. It was phenomenal to have you on the show. Guys, please connect with Napoleon. Check him out on LinkedIn.